Putting yourself at the abyss to serve country, then years recovering from a war injury. What do you have to show for it? Tonight, the Purple Heart given to those soldiers who've suffered wounds in combat. It's estimated 1.8 million such honors have been awarded, but there's no number of those servicemen and women who have been lost in the process. We found one, still waiting and coping with war's wake right here in the tri-state. Eyewitness News investigates tonight a Marine's pain.
I just want to feel like I have meaning again. I feel worthless.
His name is Alan Kissinger. He's a Marine.
I've put on a pair of dress blues. I've fought for our country. I've watched my friends die.
He's never forgotten.
Been smiled at by death, but, I smiled back.
He's a father.
My daughter was born while I was in Iraq. I didn't meet her till she was 6 months old.
Then came Fallujah, Iraq, June 25th, 2007.
We heard a loud pop and a flash, and our truck filled up with smoke, and we got hit by a roadside bomb.
The roadside bomb in the new millennium, known as the improvised explosive device, the IED. Alan Kissinger spent 3 years in a military barracks for wounded veterans, recovering from the physical wounds. But his soul is still healing, and that's not going well.
I think I realized that I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder when I came home.
When we think about the old definition of PTSD, it was even more characteristic of what our veterans are having, which is the exposure to a catastrophic, life-threatening event.
I wasn't the same. I was angrier. I was easy to startle, pushed away people that were close to me.
That leaves Kissinger harboring his torment, keeping it from his kids.
But they're so young right now, and I don't want them to know about the negative side of their dad's life. I want them to see me happy. I don't want anybody to know what it's like to be inside my head.
A returning vet might just startle if a car backfires or something, to someone that when a plane flies over or a helicopter flies over, they go right back in their mind and their emotional state to what it was like to be in combat.
Add this to the stew. Despite his war wounds, Alan Kissinger is among an untold number of men and women who have not received the Purple Heart, the nation's honor for those wounded in combat. Kissinger says he has documentation showing he had a grade 3 concussion, but the diagnosis came weeks after the blast.
And there was a 2-month gap before I actually got screened for my post-IED hit. I didn't get any shrapnel. I didn't get shot. I didn't get penetrated by anything. This is all invisible wounds.
He's been there, he's done that. It's 8 years later and he still doesn't have it. He's probably feeling pretty badly screwed in this whole process.
Gary May was lying on his back at a field hospital near Da Nang in Vietnam when he turned and saw a Bronze Star pinned to his pillow. The Marine had already received his Purple Heart within days after a devastating injury, as he was doing recon of a rice paddy field and stepped on a mine.
Of course, the mine was detonated, and that resulted in the traumatic amputations of both my legs.
May does not flaunt his Purple Heart. It's what he has done since his injury, being a leading advocate for veterans, that defines him. Still, the Purple Heart is a contract.
And that contract says, in effect, that if you do this for us at great peril, at great risk, then you'll be appropriately rewarded.
It begs the question for those who have been left behind, why no reward, no Purple Heart for a Marine like Alan Kissinger?
The system is very bureaucratic, and that's part of the problem.
8th District Congressman Larry Bouchon preparing for a flight back to Washington. His office, like others on Capitol Hill, are often contacted by a wounded warrior like Alan Kissinger, asking for help.
Congressman, you're telling me, and this is not your directive, but it's almost as though, hey, you're the veteran, it's up to you to do all this legwork per the military to get your honors.
I think that can be true. I mean, I think if you file this, decades later, especially, that very much can be true. And there's nothing really at a congressional office can do.
For some soldiers, time can be cruel. It took almost 45 years for James R. Below to receive his Purple Heart. He was wounded by the Viet Cong not far from Da Nang. His was a textbook case of mountains of paperwork prolonging Below's wait for decades. For Alan Kissinger, it's been going on for 8 years.
There's some days that I don't want to take on the world. You know, I just want to hide.
Kissinger points to one paper in a stack of medical documents, records providing a picture of his post-war journey. A single correspondence from a doctor who, he says, examined his wounds, stating it's a Purple Heart. What more does the military need?
What they will have to do is file paperwork and have witnesses to whatever they did that they believe qualifies them for a Purple Heart.
To receive a Purple Heart, veterans must navigate several tiers of the military before they can receive the honor. In Kissinger's case, he must submit his request to the U.S. Marine Corps Office of Legislative Affairs. From there, it is forwarded to the U.S. MC Military Awards Branch at Quantico. Then the Navy Personnel Command is notified. If it signs off, the recommendation for a Purple Heart goes back to the Congressional Office for medal presentation.
And you do need to have documentation of how it happened and have witnesses.
But it's the witnesses Alan Kissinger says he cannot find.
Character witnesses that are just hard to come by.
Kissinger claims he was rotated from company to company. The Marines he was with when the IED went off were, for the most part, according to Kissinger, perfect strangers, impossible now to locate. But he says he does have this, a Fallujah surgeon's report, taken shortly after the IED blast. He reads it as though he knows it by heart.
Kissinger meets criteria for grade 3 concussion. We also need to identify who lost consciousness. It says corpsman should be easy anyway. That's a Purple Heart.
A report sent via email, a report stuffed in Kissinger's stack of documents. Therein lies what Kissinger believes is his road to a Purple Heart.
And that was sent to who, you?
That was sent to my company, First Sergeant. That was just a copy that was put in my medical record.
Medals, honors, how important are they?
And I had my medals on a stand at my dresser. And every morning as I was struggling to put my legs on to get ready for the day, the work day, I would be looking at those medals.
But for Alan Kissinger, with different wounds, he's still waiting, trying to maneuver his way through life after the roadside bomb went off. Still, this Marine perhaps has a medal no one can take away. It is, once a Marine, always a Marine.
Every day I wake up wishing that I was putting my camis back on.